Thank you very much, and hello, everybody. Our talk this afternoon, first there is a change where there's two authors, not just one, because the palaeography component is very important, and although I submitted under my own name, it became very clear that this cannot be done without the collaboration of Ma Kun, as you will see in this paper. And second, the contents are slightly different from what the abstract says. You will see how. Now, this is about the Yusi initial of Middle Chinese, which is Y in our system, in Bill's and my system. This initial has long been suspected of having several Old Chinese origins because there are different patterns of phonetic series contacts. One of those is widely believed to come from laterals. The words that have Yusi from laterals have contacts, Xieshan contacts, etc., with Middle Chinese D, TH, SY, and others, which are the most common reflexes of Old Chinese laterals. And there are examples here, which are good examples. So I'm not going to stay long on this. Second origin of Y in our book is from R, preceded by a nasal prefix. And the words that have this origin of Yusi have contacts to Middle Chinese L. In addition, they have Z in Proto-Min, like these. And the last one is from uvular. These words come from capital G, or if not from capital G, then from voiced, Middle Chinese voiced reflexes of capital Q, that has been, that has a nasal prefix before it. So that's the very common pattern, that nasal prefixes voiceless stops. So these words have contact to Middle Chinese glottal stop, X, H, velars, including engma. So there are these examples. No. Right. So these sources of Yusi have different Old Chinese origins, but they merge into yod, into ye on the way to Middle Chinese. Now, in the Baxter-Sagart system, all Middle Chinese Yusi and all medial J arise secondarily after Old Chinese non-pharyngalized initials. It's a kind of it's a device to maintain a phonological distinction that was in danger of becoming lost because pharyngalization weakens. So they strengthen the non-pharyngalized part of the correlation by inserting a yod, which is the opposite articulatory movement from pharyngalization. Oh. So there is no need in our system for an initial ye or a medial J in Old Chinese, and we don't have one. Now, supposing a uvular origin of ye helps explain contacts to Middle Chinese, glottal stop, X, H, etc. Contacts, there's a problem with this. Contacts are of three kinds. There's phonetic series contacts, word family contacts, and jiajie contacts. And these three kinds of contacts are not mutually exclusive. Here is a phonetic series and word family contact involving Yusi. So that's yi, increase, that has a glottal stop in Middle Chinese. So that can come from from Q or a glottal stop in Old Chinese. But then there is come on.
You can press the right arrow of the computer itself.
Ah, yes. Good idea. So these two words, the second one has yu si initial. So it has yu si in contact with the glottal stop means uvular. So the word family is based on a root QIK, and with or without without n, which is a stative prefix. Now here's an example of a jiajie contact. Ye, night, is used for ju, to lift, raise, in an excavated text of the Warring States period. This is the passage. It says, Wang Ye Jue, that is, the king Ju raised his Jue vessel. Okay. So Ye is used as a jiajie for Ju. Ye is also used as a jiajie for she, to pardon. In this passage from an excavated text, 大罪则业之以心，脏罪则业之以法，小则子之 which means serious offenses are pardoned through corporal punishments, and ordinary offenses through lesser punishments, and lighter offenses through fines. So ye is used for she. Now, she cannot come from a palatal. The phonetic of she is ch, red, and the uvular initial QHR that we reconstruct in red finds a striking parallel in a recent reconstruction of a Tibeto-Burman group, Kobwa, that Tim Bott reconstructed last year. So he reconstructs QHREK, krek, red. So that's not a palatal. And for red, the STET website reconstruct grak, red. But our proposal did not get universal approval that we hoped it would. Schuessler in a 2015 paper and Guillaume Jacques in 2002 papers disagree. They think that there is a correspondence between Middle Chinese yod and yusi and Tibeto-Burman yod, and so they reconstruct Old Chinese J and PST J, Pro-Sino-Tibetan J for these words, like this. Very simple. But there is a major problem with this scheme, is that it cannot account for contacts between Middle Chinese yusi and words without medial J, that is division 1 or division 4 or division R words. Division R is a little in between, but 1 and 4 definitely cannot account for. So this paper will present 5 examples, and that's absolutely not exhaustive. Now, Jacques gives an example. He compares Jingpo Ya to give and Middle Chinese and Yu, Middle Chinese Yo, according to him, he reconstructs a. Sorry, no, this is our Middle Chinese, right? But he reconstructs Yu as Old Chinese Ya, glottal stop to give. He rejects our Mkra. He thinks it's complicated and it doesn't work anyway. He explains the jiajie contact to Ju that I mentioned before by supposing that Middle Chinese, that the K in Ju is a prefix. Yeah, it doesn't say what the prefix does. And that's his only tool for explaining jiajie contacts between yusi and words with non-yusi initials. Yeah. But the problem here is that the phonetic element in yu is ya, tooth. for which we reconstruct mgra with a uvular G. The fact that ya is phonetic in yu is not doubted by paleographers. There is the analysis in Shuowen 从语从不知道这个东西叫什么，不知道是怎么说从语。But this analysis is based on a simplified form of the character. In early paleography, the character includes ya tooth. So the early graph had 4 hands for raising or lifting something up, and ya in the middle. That's what it looks like. So you can see the 4 hands, 2 on top, 2 at the bottom, and in the middle, this thing is ya. That's the normal way of writing ya in the early Chinese script. And there's just no other explanation for ya here than that it is a phonetic. Otherwise, what would a tooth do in a word meaning to lift? Now, a uvular origin of the eng initial in ya is clear from ya, crow. So with our reconstructions, ya is mgra, and it's a good phonetic for yu, mkra. If, as Guillaume Jacques thinks, yu was Old Chinese ya with a J, then why choose ya, tooth, as its phonetic? It doesn't make much sense. How much time do I have? How long do I?
45 minutes. 12 minutes.
Okay. So my second example, our second example will be Gong impartial public. Now the OBI, the oracle bone inscription graph for Gong represents a kind of jar, which is thought to be the precursor of modern Weng, earthen jar. So it's, again, this has, can you see? Yeah, this has a glottal stop here in Middle Chinese, so that has to go back to a Q. And in the oracle bone inscription, the same graph is used for old man father, as in Wang Gong. So, which means that in Shangchao, in Shang Chinese, Gong, Wang Gong de Gong and Weng were pronounced in a very similar way. And our belief is, our interpretation is that it was Q-O-N Engma with a type A, with a pharyngalization. There are related forms in Hakka, in Tibeto-Burman. Burmese as U-I-Eng, which is read Aing, in Burmese, and the reflection of Sino-Tibetan Q as in Burmese is 0. The normal reflex of Q is 0. So that goes back to Q. So this is all consistent with Old Chinese uvulars. Now the problem for Jacques' theory is the word rong, to contain. Rong has Middle Chinese yu si initial. Jars are containers. So Weng, earthen jar, and rong, to contain, can have the same root, provided capital G between square brackets is disambiguated to M-Q. So the root would be gong. Now, as it turns out, Bao Rong de Rong has an old graph, which according to Shuowen is this, and notice that it has the Gong phonetic, which points to a uvular initial here too. Now, according to Jacques' idea, Rong should be Yong. But how can Gong be a good phonetic for an Old Chinese yong. It doesn't work. Third example, yu, breed, produce. The first character of the two is the older one, is the earlier one. The character's right part is not a phonetic. It represents a child being born, and the left part is the mother. Now, in Oracle Bond's inscriptions, yu serves as jiajie for ho, put after, and ho, sovereign, lord, queen. How can that be? If they're both division one words, and their initial of the two ho words are either uvular or velar. Now, if yu is yok, as Jacques presumably thinks, then how can that yok serve as jiajie for an Old Chinese gro or gro? It doesn't make sense. Fourth example is gu, valley. This type A word, this pharyngalized word, is phonetic in yu, to desire. And gu is also a jiajie for yu in the Zhouyi. Yu, to desire. No, that's an error. It's not a jiajie for yu. It's yu is a jiajie for gu. Sorry, this sentence is wrong. It's this yu here is a jiajie for gu in the Zhouyi, where ru yu yao gu is written with sandian shui, which is a type B word. Why did they want a type B word here? That's an interesting question, but I'm not going to try to answer that today. But anyway, how can a gu, which is presumably Old Chinese K and Jacques' idea, how can it serve as phonetic in yu, which is presumably yok? Doesn't make sense. And how can yu? Sorry, this is an error again. Forget this. Last example, and for this we must thank Ye Yuying for pointing this point to our attention. There is a passage in Ode 252, which means full of dignity and majesty in the Mao version, and it uses ngang in the second part. But in the Shijing version from the tomb of Liu He, Marquis of Haihun Ho, in Western Han, ngang ngang is replaced by yang yang, so that makes sense in our reconstruction, because in our reconstruction, yang has a uvular initial, and it evolves to Middle Chinese yang. And if you put a nasal prefix before ngang, before yang, before gong, that will give you Middle Chinese ng, and that will then be a good jiajie for ngang ngang, ang ang. But if yang was yang as per Jacques' proposal, then how can a yang serve as jiajie for a word Middle Chinese nang? It doesn't work. So I've given the 5 examples of yu si having context with type A words, that is, words that we think were pharyngalized in Old Chinese. And I don't think these examples can be explained under Jacques' theory that yu si came from ye. So ye is not, Old Chinese ye is not an adequate reconstruction for these words that I have discussed. It cannot explain a pattern of contacts of all kinds to Middle Chinese non-palaeogrammatic words. What the Chinese evidence points to is non-pharyngalized uvular initials instead, evolving to Middle Chinese ye. So the Old Chinese ye to Tibeto-Burman ye idea originates in the Benedict Madisov tradition of research on Sino-Tibetan. On the STET website, you will find reconstructions of PTB Yod, and when words reconstructed by Benedict and Madisov with Y have cognates in Chinese, these are these Y words sometimes correspond to Yusi in Middle Chinese. And when this happens, the words belong to the kind we reconstruct with uvular. It does not happen with the laterals or the R's. So these are the examples. To give night, armpit, itch, and sheep. Now notice that some of them, two of them, have a G prefix. What they analyze is a G prefix. Doesn't have any function, once again. But we suggest that Proto-Sino-Tibetan was more like Old Chinese than it is like Tibeto-Burman. That it had a velar-uvular contrast, as proposed by Peyros and Starostin in 1996, and by Starostin even before that. And that it had a pharyngalization contrast, like Bill and I proposed in a paper that I have not been able to find on my computer, but it's somewhere there, I know. And we suggest that the initial phoneme that is noted as a J, as Yod, sorry, in the STET reconstructions, this phoneme here is secondary. Oops. It is the result of palatal intrusion, as is Yod in Middle Chinese. So we will not discuss TB developments here. We'll do that maybe on another occasion, but for the moment, we will stop here. And we thank you for your attention.